Take 3. Interview with Heather Johnson. Is that what you like to be called?
No, I'm Heather Stewart Johnson.
Heather Stewart Johnson for a story on Cannington and Cannington Church and the pooches that she has been looking after and training over many years until quite recently. And it is for News West, which if that's reversed will not be in the final edit. Right. Heather Stewart Johnson. Tell me a bit about yourself. Where do you come from?
How far back in history do you want to go? I'm from a country kid from Collie, and
Right.
I've travelled a lot around Australia and overseas, and am back here for my retirement years.
Right.
Yeah,
You were in Indonesia for how long?
10 years. Yeah,
Living there?
living and teaching.
Teaching?
Yes.
What?
Whatever needed
School.
to be taught. We used English as the medium for instruction, and I was it because I spoke English.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And you learnt the local language as well?
I went there for my own personal reasons to learn Indonesian, and the teaching was my reason for staying. Yeah. That my excuse for the government to let me stay. Yeah.
And have a career that included that long stretch in Indonesia. Very exciting. Now, you're back here in Cannington,
Yes.
or Canning area. You live
Yeah.
in the city of Canning, am I
Yeah,
right?
I live in
Linwood,
yeah,
which is part of the city
part
of
of the
Canning.
city of Canning.
And in your retirement years, you have purposed to be proactive in
Yes.
many endeavours.
Yeah.
Many of them connected to this church,
Yes.
Cannington Seventh-day Adventist Church,
Yes.
of what you remember. How long have you been a Seventh-day Adventist?
How old am I? 46 years.
Quite a while.
Yeah.
46 years.
Yeah.
Right. Baptised where?
In Kalgoorlie.
Kalgoorlie.
Yeah, under Merv Tonkin.
Really?
And he was there.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. And prior to that, what were you doing? And what were you thinking?
Prior to being baptised,
Yes.
I was newly married and living in Kalgoorlie because my husband was mining.
Right.
And I actually took on a bit of teaching, but I had our first 2 children in Kalgoorlie, so
Kalgoorlie.
that took some time.
And you
Just a wee
were
bit.
not a believer in anything religious at that time, if I am not mistaken.
I actually set out to prove God was not something I had to consider. Yeah, well, that worked, didn't it? Yeah, I tripped across Merv in another friend's house when he was taking the signs around and had a rip-roaring discussion on the merits of rock music. I hate rock music, but rock music was losing the argument, so I took up that side.
I see.
At the end of it, I asked him who he was and where he was from, and he said he was from the Adventist church. And at that point, I was trawling through the churches trying to find one that actually fitted to the Bible guidelines. I made the decision that if I ever found, in the unlikely event I ever found a church that actually did what the Bible said, maybe I'd be interested. So I asked him to come and see me, and I told him point blank, I will never be a Seventh-day Adventist, I just want to know what you believe. And he smiled gently and said, that's fine. 3 years later, I was baptised.
Right.
Yeah.
With 2 kids under the arm.
With 2 kids
2
at
kids
that
at
point.
that stage.
Yeah.
All right. Fast forward to now, retired, happily living with your husband in the city of Canning.
Yes.
And the first thing I remember about you when you came to this church was a happy disposition and also an interest in things that would benefit the community. But I don't think that materialised as quickly as your attachment to dogs
No.
in a church context. So tell me about the dogs, and
Well,
what they are and where they're from and why you had so many over the few years you've been involved with them.
9. We've had 9.
9.
Yeah. I think I was here about a year.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I thought you were all dead from the neck up because although everyone was very friendly, there wasn't very much happening here. And I was interested in getting into something that would actually benefit people in the community that would otherwise miss out. And assistance dogs came up on my radar. I got into the website and said, what about me? Can I be trained? And they had a trainer here at the time, so I was the first and only assistance dog trained for quite a while, and that was Echo, our first one. And of course that meant that the people who were at the church had to make a decision, because part of the training of these dogs is that they must have access to every feasible activity that someone in a wheelchair might actually be involved in.
Not just training though, is it? Can you tell me something about the law regarding dogs, assistance dogs, and access to public spaces?
The law is, particularly in Western Australia, that they must be allowed into any space that the public has access to.
What happens if you refuse access to a dog?
Then we go away very disappointed and mumbling. They have broken the law. But you don't argue with them on their doorstep, but you do make sure that they get to know about it.
Right.
Yeah. So that you and I've had a few instances where we carry a little we carry a little card that quotes the law and gives the conditions that these dogs operate under, and I've had to flash that card a few times. But in most cases it's just that people don't know, and they think that, dogs, you can't have them in here. And they know about guide dogs, but they don't know about assistance dogs.
Tell me the difference about assistance dogs and guide dogs. Is there an official title for the type of training and the type of dog and the type of role that they end up in?
Actually, guide dogs are an assistance dog.
Right.
They're just an assistance dog for the vision impaired. So assistance dogs in other categories, you could have someone who needs one for diabetic alert. People go into comas with diabetes in severe forms. So the dogs know before you know that you're headed for one of those episodes. So there's diabetic alert, there's renal failure alert, there's, what else we've got? Epilepsy alert. There's children with autism. They will stop a child melting down, or if the child does have a meltdown, they will make it a much less severe episode. There's dogs, stability dogs, who are trained to hold you up if one of your legs isn't functioning for you. And there are PTSD dogs coming out now who are going to soldiers and policemen and people with severe PTSD who can't function without having the dog support.
What types of dogs do they like to get for these varied roles? Do the breeds vary according to the role, or are they all one breed pretty much?
The predominance of them are Labradors. There are occasions, like the deaf will use dogs for a sound alert, and so they can be any breed, because they're not necessarily going to be assistance dogs in a public domain, whereas most of the others have to be in the public domain, so they are Labradors are perceived to be a better dog for that, but that's just a convention that's grown up in Australia. In other countries they use shepherds, and poodles are particularly good at it, and there's a few other breeds that they will use too. But Labradors are pretty good at vegging out and doing nothing, and they have to do a lot of that.
So being placid and docile,
yeah.
But in the background alert.
Yes.
And conscious of their role.
Yes.
When the dogs were here, they were wearing, in every case, I think,
yes,
their cape.
Yeah.
Tell us about the cape.
The cape...
It doesn't have an S on it, does it?
No.
Or that symbol? That
no, it's not a Superman, but it should. It should. Yeah. The cape, there's three versions of the cape. The capes that you would have seen with the dogs I bring are the beginning learner phase. They have a L on them.
So they do,
yes,
now that I think about it.
Yeah. When they get to the next stage, they've gone through that initial socialising stage, we call it, they get one with a P on it, which means they're just about there. They're almost there. And
Did you have any P dogs when you were here?
No, was not my part of the phase.
Right.
Yeah, not my part of the process. So that happens when they go to Sydney to the training facility and they're almost through. They still use the L cape until they're almost placed. In fact,
so P doesn't actually mean placed.
No,
it means provisional, just like
probationary, just like the licences. So actually, when they're actually assigned, they wear the P cape for a few weeks until it's obvious that they've settled, and then they get I'm licensed cape. It's a bit shorter and it's they're just like the guide dogs that are actually placed.
Right.
It's that kind of cape.
And when they're not wearing their cape,
they're just dogs.
Dogs.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting when they play and run. And what about food and other consequences of eating that come naturally? How is that all managed?
Well, it can be problematic with Labradors because they'll eat anything, and they'll eat it till it's all gone, whether it's good for them or not. Part of the reason that they control the kind of food that they're eating is it controls the toileting phase, because they have to be able to go on cue. So that's part of that first training phase, to be able to say to them, right, toilet, and they just do it.
And they do it. Very controlled.
Yeah, very controlled.
Not spontaneous or messy.
They can be, but no, it does. There's a messy phase right at the beginning, but it goes away.
So these dogs have a very regulated life.
Yes.
And they're selected not so much because of the breed, but because of their assessed temperament.
Correct.
And suitability for the assignment that they are likely to end up in. Yeah. Could there be a couple of different pathways they might go in the process of training, or is it sort of in view from
That's
this
the
big?
beauty of this particular assistance dog group, is that when they first select the puppies, they select on pretty tight criteria, so there's a very, very low failure rate. In the time that we had dogs in WA, there were 2 that I can remember that had to fail. They had to go out.
2 of your dogs?
Not mine.
Okay.
But other people were training them. One of them was just a fraidy cat. He just couldn't deal with anything that moved suddenly. And the other one was quite sick. So he had to go for his own health.
So, fair enough.
Yeah. But once they get into the system, then the predominant aim is for wheelchair access people, and there's a very long waiting list of people needing them, and way too few dogs being trained. But if they don't manage with the chairs, and that can be a problem if they've had an accident with a chair and they're a bit wary and leery of the chair, if that doesn't work, then there's all these other avenues that they can go into. The first dog that I had was first assigned to a doctor in a hospital. The doctor didn't do very well with the dog, so she was sent back to the training system, and then it was obvious that she was just so friendly and so amenable with children. They thought that her role was going to switch quickly. So she's now in a special school for children with disabilities, so there's chairs and there's amblers and crutches and all sorts of things that she deals with 20 children every day. So she's assigned to the teacher, but she goes to school every day and her job is to deal with those children.
So the dogs are more often than not going to pass.
Yes.
And the beauty of the system is that they can go, into various nuances of their basic assignment.
Yeah.
Now, in bringing the dogs to church here, did you perceive any initial hostility, or was it total welcoming? We have some doggy people in our church, don't we?
Yeah, at the beginning, when we were a bit fewer in number, we had a really strong group of doggy people who loved having the pups come in. Some people
These pups are less than 1 year old when they come, aren't they?
They're 10 weeks when I get them.
Oh, 10 weeks.
Yeah, so you've had...
They look big for 10 weeks.
Yeah, 10 weeks, yeah. So they came in from that phase, it's very important to get them out when they're that small because it stops some of the phobias developing in the first place. Yeah, and we did have a very welcoming, accepting group here. Later we had a few people who, dogs in church, can't possibly have that.
And why, is that expected, you know? The temple of God, the sacredness, the cleanliness, purity.
I can understand why some people get to that point, but wait till they're blind or they need a dog for some reason, and I think their attitude would change pretty quickly.
It's a very ancient sort of attitude to dogs.
Yeah, we can't.
Pre-biblical almost. Not quite pre-biblical, but we, and outside are the dogs. Yeah. Which implies that dogs don't get into the temple. Yeah. And they probably didn't get into the temple back in Jerusalem. But if they didn't really look at dogs in a utilitarian sense. They didn't have that notion of pet even. They were just creatures on the sides.
Yeah. When you look at the temple system, people didn't actually go much into the temple. They worshipped on the outside. Yeah. So I don't know that dogs were used for these sorts of things way back then.
We have no idea.
But certainly no one expected to sacrifice them or eat them.
No, they were not considered that type of creature.
Surprisingly, pigs are very good at this job.
Are they?
Very, yeah.
Well,
they don't get the public perception though.
No, they get rather big.
Yeah.
Miniature pig, maybe. Yeah. But the dogs are of predictable size, predictable outlook. Your dogs were mostly brown, but some of them are golden retrievers. They're not golden retrievers. They're golden coloured Labradors.
Yes, I had a black one for a while.
A black one too.
Yeah, so
what were the names of your dogs?
Can I remember all 9?
Echo was one.
Echo was the first one. We had Jinx. Jimmy. The one with the
Sonny.
ear. Sonny was one. I can't remember them all.
We've got up to 4. We'll think about it. We can come back.
And of course, the last one, Greta.
There's 5.
Yeah.
More than halfway there now.
Yeah.
We'll track them
down. Get them.
We'll track them down. Yeah. So the dogs came here. They stayed with you in church. They were quiet. Sometimes they slept. Sometimes the kids patted them.
Yeah.
All part of the training.
Yes.
All entirely in line with the expectations of interactions with other humans.
Yes.
In the process of doing work. And they became popular parts of our daily, weekly appearances on Sabbath. And on a Sunday, once the community garden got started, you would bring the dogs here and what would you do?
Cape's off day.
Cape's off day.
Yeah, so we had to have the gate shut to make sure they stayed with us.
Because they'll just go like dogs.
Yeah, which is why...
Like puppy dogs too.
It's why he yelled at people when they came through the gate. Come through a shut gate, shut the gate. But, that was a really good day for the dog. Depending on which one it is, they ran excessively round and round and round, and then the kids came and that was fun too.
Chased sticks?
Chewed
sticks, on bones?
Yeah. Tried to invite people
bones
over the
were
fence.
not part of the deal.
No, we don't give them bones.
No.
Yeah.
They would chase sticks though.
Yeah.
They would chew a stick.
Yeah.
Just couldn't stop that once the cape's off. But they really had a lot of fun.
Yeah, they very quickly learned the difference between cape on and cape off. Yeah. So they knew when it was settled down, be quiet time, and when it was, okay, I'm free. Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter if you happened to walk out that way just to go to the car. They wouldn't suddenly get an urge to go bounding around the place if their cape was on.
No, they didn't.
They were on duty and they knew that this is where I like to play. But
I think the biggest training...
It's funny though, in a way, the Sabbath's supposed to be a day of rest, but the dogs are actually technically working.
Yeah, while they've got that cape on,
I don't think
I think the hardest part of the training was getting people to keep their mitts off. Yeah, because that's a distraction. But the dogs got very good at ignoring people, and I rewarded them for that, which seems very mean.
They'd even stay here for our we are in the hall taking this recording, and they would stay for the dinner as well. Yeah. Which has to be the way, doesn't it?
They have to be able to do that. They have to be able to be within a human activity and just be a dog and stay out of the way and be inconspicuous. Yeah.
So, do you think that having the dog here has opened this church up and broken through some of the fortresses that,
I hope
that might
so.
have been here when you first showed up at Cannington?
Now that I don't have one in active training at the moment, I've had a lot of questions. When's the next one coming? So there are people who look forward to the dog coming. So she's due on the 8th or thereabouts of May.
Oh,
yeah.
Due.
Right,
okay.
Here.
So you are
due
getting
here.
another dog.
Yeah, so she's going to be born on the 17th of March.
Okay.
And if
Well,
it's an
that's
all-boy...
5 days away.
Yeah, if it's an all-boy litter, we're in trouble. So we'll have to wait for the next litter. But projected at the moment, we should get one of those.
What's the group called? That coordinates all of this?
Assistance Dogs Australia.
It's just Assistance Dogs Australia.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a WA branch, but it's a national
it's overseen by Sydney. Yeah. They... where was I going with that? No,
coming.
Lost it.
Dogs coming.
Oh, the dogs coming. They fly over. They've been assessed and selected over there, so I trust them on that because there's nothing I can do about it. And nothing I would have known to do about it in the beginning. But now I know what those traits are that we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the same routine with a new dog that comes?
Same routine.
Right.
You know, it's like having a new baby.
Really? How can... who's eligible to be in the assistance training program? Assistance dog training program?
Anyone who's willing to put in the time and who's open-minded enough and... I suppose humble would be the word I'm looking for, and that doesn't consider
so the dog
they
needs
know.
to have somebody around all the time.
Yeah, you have to be teachable because there's a lot to know that you wouldn't know with just an ordinary pet.
Right. So when you're at church, they're sort of in working phase.
Yes.
Just sort of motoring through their training, but you're at home and you'd be teaching them more specific things and program.
Yeah. So this is one part of the training. So at home, I'm doing, there's sort of a 3-phase thing to any new skill. So you teach it in a very controlled setting and then you move it to where there's a few distractions and then you take it out on the road and see if they can cope with it way out.
You wouldn't take the dog everywhere, you'd leave them at home sometimes, wouldn't you, cape off, just with your husband or whoever happens
Sometimes that's part of it too, they have to be able to be left. Yeah, so we train them to a crate. And they can stay in the crate for 3 hours at the most. Yeah, some people say
train them to a crate.
No, train them. Train them to the crate. So it's
what does that mean? Train them to the crate.
Well, they're accustomed to being locked into the crate if they see. There's times when
the crate is like a box.
It's a wire crate where they can see everything out.
Right. Okay.
And you put it where they can see activity. But they're not able to be part of what's going on. So I would use the crate when something dangerous is happening, like I'm putting hot water around or, doing something where a pup could be damaged.
Right.
Yeah. Or where there are new people around and the dog's not sure of them, they haven't been introduced properly, so I'd crate them then for a little bit in their very early phases. Once they get to close to adulthood, they can handle that sort of thing.
So just as much as you are training the dog to have a duty of care, you have a duty of care to look after the dog, clearly.
Yes.
Give it all its nourishment, its protection. It needs to feel safe.
Yes.
It's a child.
Yeah.
Dog,
yeah.
basically.
And also to be aware of what's happening. An incident I had at camp with Jinx. She was exceedingly friendly and very gentle, but I knew that, but other people might not have. And I was talking to a couple of adults there, and a gentleman that I had never met him, but he had a child that was at teeth height. And that's worrying because he was encouraging her to come in and pat the dog. That's poor training for the child because not every dog will accept that and they will bite.
Yes,
Jinx would not have, but I put up my hand and said, please don't let your child come to a dog that doesn't know without checking with the handler. And he grumped at me. And
he wanted to see the dog. He wanted to bring his girl through. It was totally harmless from his point of view, but you actually thinking of the girl as much as the dog. The dog actually
I was thinking of the girl because that's poor long-term training for the child.
For the child, she needs to be a little wary generally in public.
There have been children with severe facial bites with that sort of situation. If he had said to me, may my child come and talk to the dog, I would have prepared the dog to greet the child.
Yeah, at a lower level.
And and I would have been aware and in control of the dog. So, I mean, Jix was pretty good, but you know, you just don't know.
Any favourites among the dogs?
Echo, I think
Echo,
the first one, and Greta, the last one.
Yeah.
But they were
They're
actually the related.
Are they?
Yeah, Greta is her niece, and this next one that I'm getting will be Echo's niece too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, you did the training with the Assistance Dogs Australia back in what year?
It's 4 years back, so...
12?
Yeah.
When did you go for...
It was done in
Done here?
situ,
Right.
in
You didn't
Perth.
go to Sydney.
So I went
you
to weekly
Sydney
training sessions.
Training for Community Garden with ADRA.
That's right, yes.
Was that a little later? It was a little later, wasn't it?
Yes.
A year later?
Yes.
2013?
Yeah, out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back to this question again, perhaps it's
Yeah.
the last question. ADRA training was 2013.
Yeah.
I was asking about the opening up of the church to supporting ideas that had a stronger community focus.
Yeah.
Not that the church didn't have the sense that it needed to do that, but
No.
getting across some hurdles was a big
Well,
issue.
it's-
But eventually, having seen you with this dog and the whole, impact that was having, the stories
Yeah.
you would tell of how these dogs were going to be used to
Yeah.
people, and having a lot of doggy people in the church
Yeah.
anyway, some of
Yeah.
our older ladies. Do you think that sort of cracked open the idea of then sending you specifically to be trained for the ADRA Garden idea once that was approved?
No, actually, I don't think there was much connection
Not
there.
much connection?
No. That came about because someone had said that they were floating this idea of training someone to help churches in Western Australia get community gardens going. Well, as it happens, Cannington is the only one who's actually done anything about it. But I've got the training to help someone other church that might want to do that.
Yeah. Let's be honest, the dog is a personal ministry.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes,
it hasn't had any endorsement or approval from the church. Yes, it's probably somebody coming for another program with the. But
it was on my part. It was a conscious decision to bring them into the church because I think that we can be, as a group, like any group, we can be a bit insular to new ideas.
Sure. Yeah.
And we've got one other Adventist lady who trains them for the blind who lives in Kalamunda somewhere.
Right.
So there's another dog going. Yeah, there's another dog that goes to church.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Another dog that goes to church?
Yeah. So, and she was at camp last year with her dog. But